Imagine walking into a courtroom where no one takes you seriously, where even the judge mocks you, dismissing you as nothing more than a child. But what if, in that very moment, the world discovers that the boy they laughed at is actually a genius attorney, ready to expose the system's deepest bias? This is not just a courtroom drama. It's a story of dignity, courage, and the fight for justice. The courtroom smelled of old wood and cold judgment, the kind of place where voices echoed, not only against the walls, but against lives. People sat in stiff rows of benches, whispering stories in their heads about the boy who walked through those tall double doors. He couldn't have been more than 16. His sneakers squeaked on the polished floor, his school bag looked out of place, and the world seemed to lean in, ready to laugh or dismiss him before he even opened his mouth. The judge, a man with silver hair and a heavy gavel, raised his eyebrows as though a joke had just stepped into his courtroom. His lips twisted into something between annoyance and amusement. "What's this?" he muttered. "Bring in the defendant's attorney, not the defendant's little brother." A ripple of laughter spread across the room. Courtrooms are supposed to be silent, solemn places, but sometimes prejudice speaks louder than the rules. The boy didn't flinch. He walked steadily to the table where attorneys usually sit, placed his bag down, and pulled out a folder thick with papers. His hands didn't shake. His eyes didn't dart. He sat as if he had always belonged there. The judge leaned forward, incredulous. "Son, this is no place for games. Where's your legal counsel?" The boy looked up, his voice calm, measured, carrying a weight that belied his age. "Your Honor, I am the legal counsel." Gasps cut through the air. A woman dropped her pen. Someone stifled a laugh. Another whispered, "Impossible." The judge, unimpressed, smirked and slammed the gavel once. "Enough. This is a court of law, not a classroom skit. Sit down until your attorney arrives." But the boy didn't move. He opened the folder, slid papers across the table, and spoke again, his tone sharper now, filled with something more than confidence. It was defiance wrapped in dignity. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the statutes of this state allow any qualified individual, regardless of age, to represent a client provided they have passed the bar. I have done so. The clerk's office should have my credentials on file." Silence fell like a stone dropped in water. The judge blinked. The room tilted. Someone near the back whispered, "Did he say he passed the bar?" The boy's words hung in the air, not begging to be believed, but demanding it. The judge's smirk faltered, but pride is a stubborn thing. "And I suppose," he said dryly, "you're here to teach us all a lesson in law. Boy genius?" The boy's eyes didn't leave his. "No, Your Honor. I'm here to defend a man's dignity. Something I hope this courtroom still values." The laughter died. Every set of eyes turned now, not to mock, but to measure. Who was this boy who spoke with such gravity? Who carried not just knowledge, but the weight of generations behind his words? The case itself was simple on the surface. A black man accused of theft, a wallet missing from store counter. No witnesses, no fingerprints, just suspicion. Suspicion that had teeth, suspicion that clung to his skin because it was dark. The boy, sitting straight back at the table, knew it. Everyone in that room knew it, too, though few would ever admit it. He began to speak, outlining inconsistencies in the accusation with startling clarity. His voice grew stronger with every sentence. The store owner claimed the wallet was taken at 7:15 p.m., but security footage shows my client leaving the premises at 7:03, 12 minutes before the alleged theft. The prosecution claims he lingered, but they cannot produce evidence of such. Instead, they rely on assumption. And we all know what assumptions have done, historically, to people who look like my client. The words cut sharper than any gavel strike. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The boy's tone carried the weight of history, not just of this case, but of centuries of injustice. It was more than legal defense. It was testimony, a plea, a roar. The judge, now visibly unsettled, tried to interrupt. "Careful, young man. You're treading into territory that has nothing to do with the case at hand." But the boy held his ground. "With respect, Your Honor, it has everything to do with it. When bias enters a courtroom, justice leaves. and I stand here not just as an attorney, but as a witness to how easily a black man's life can be broken by a system that should protect him." The silence was suffocating now. The boy turned, looked at the jury, 12 strangers, each shifting in their seats, their eyes caught in his unwavering gaze. "You are not just deciding whether a wallet was stolen," he told them. "You're deciding whether dignity can be stolen, whether suspicion alone can be enough to shackle a man. If you condemn him without proof, you tell every young black boy in this country that no matter how hard we work, no matter how good we are, we will always be guilty in the eyes of power." A murmur stirred in the back row. Even the court reporter's fingers slowed. It was not just a case anymore. It was a mirror, and everyone in that room was forced to look. The judge shifted uncomfortably, fingers drumming on the bench. His mocking tone had evaporated. He cleared his throat, but found no words. For the first time, it seemed he was not in control of his own courtroom. The boy had claimed it, not with arrogance, not with anger, but with truth. And truth has a way of silencing even the loudest gavel. The first part of the hearing ended with unease lingering in the air. The judge declared a recess, perhaps hoping the tension would dissipate with time. But as people filed out of the courtroom, whispers followed the boy like shadows. Some doubted, some admired, some feared, but all were changed, because they had seen something they could not unsee. A teenager mocked for his youth, standing taller than the very system meant to belittle him. And this was only the beginning. The recess was supposed to cool the room, but when the court resumed, the air felt heavier, almost electric. The boy returned to his seat, calm as ever, while the defendant sat beside him, eyes wide with something between disbelief and hope. For the first time in weeks, that man wasn't alone. The prosecution shuffled their papers, trying to regain their rhythm. They presented the store owner, a wiry man with sharp features and an even sharper tongue. He swore he saw the defendant lurking suspiciously near the counter, insisted that no one else could have taken the wallet. His words dripped with certainty, but not truth. When it was the boy's turn to cross-examine, he stood slowly, as though giving the moment space to breathe. He walked toward the witness stand, papers in hand, but his voice carried no anger, only precision. "Sir," he began, "you testified that you saw my client take the wallet. Did you at any moment actually see the wallet in his hand?" The store owner hesitated. "Well, no, but I saw him standing close. He looked guilty." "Looked guilty," the boy repeated softly, letting the words sink into the walls. "And what does guilty look like to you?" The witness shifted uncomfortably. "You know what I mean?" He was nervous. The boy leaned in slightly, his tone sharpening. "Or perhaps he looked guilty because of the color of his skin. Because you assumed. Isn't it true, sir, that in your statement to the police, you admitted the store was crowded that evening? That several people stood near the counter at the time?" The man stammered. "Yes, but none of them were accused. Only my client." "What?" Silence. The witness swallowed hard, his confidence unraveling. The boy didn't press further. He didn't need to. The seed had been planted in the minds of the jury, and prejudice had been laid bare under the harsh light of truth. Returning to his table, the boy pulled out another document, sliding it across the polished wood. "Your Honor," he said, "I present evidence that the store's security cameras captured 2 unidentified individuals leaving the premises after my client had already exited. The footage was overlooked by investigators, perhaps because it was easier to accuse the man who was already deemed suspicious." Gasps rippled again through the room. The judge frowned, studying the papers, then glanced at the boy with something new in his eyes. Not mockery, not irritation, but unease. Perhaps even respect, though buried deep. The jury leaned forward now, listening with a kind of hunger. The boy spoke, not only to defend his client, but to peel back layers of injustice. He reminded them of past trials where black men had been convicted with no evidence, of names that lived in history as cautionary tales. He drew lines between one man's trial and a centuries-old struggle, weaving law with legacy. And then, in the final moments, he gave them words that seemed to rise from something older than him, something ancestral. "You have a choice," he said. voice steady, eyes locked on the jurors. You could choose to see only what prejudice whispers. A black man, assumed guilty before he speaks. Or you can choose justice, not for him alone, but for every child who grows up believing the system will never hear their voice. Today, you decide whether this courtroom is a place of fairness or just another stage for injustice to perform. The room was still. Even the judge, who once smirked, now sat motionless, his gavel forgotten. The jury filed out, deliberations beginning. Minutes stretched into hours. Whispers filled the courtroom again, but this time they weren't about the boy's age. They were about his brilliance, his courage, his defiance. When the jury returned, the foreman rose. The words were simple, yet thunderous. Not guilty. The defendant's shoulders shook. Tears fell freely down his face. For the first time, he wasn't just free from accusation. He was free from the suffocating shadow of suspicion. The boy put a steady hand on his client's shoulder, and in that small gesture, dignity was restored. The judge cleared his throat, his voice strangely quiet. This court is adjourned. But before he could leave, he turned back to the boy, his eyes searching, conflicted. Young man, I underestimated you. Today, you taught us all something. The boy gathered his papers, his expression calm but firm. With respect, Your Honor, it wasn't me who taught the lesson. Justice did. All I did was remind you to listen. He walked out of that courtroom the same way he walked in. Sneakers squeaking, school bag slung over his shoulder. But this time, the whispers that followed weren't mocking. They were reverent. Some said he was a genius. Some called him a prodigy. But those who truly understood knew it was something deeper. He was a reminder that brilliance can come from places the world least expects. That dignity cannot be mocked into silence. That justice, when spoken with courage, can echo louder than prejudice. And though the courtroom emptied, the story did not end there. It lived on, in the man who walked free, in the jurors who voted differently than they might have, in the judge whose smirk had been broken. And most of all, it lived in every young black boy and girl who would hear the story and realize, the world may mock you, dismiss you, doubt you, but you are more powerful than their prejudice. You are worthy of justice. You are worthy of dignity. And sometimes, just sometimes, you're the one who teaches the world what justice truly means. Don't just watch, stand with us. Subscribe to Black